All right, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fans Discussions, considering our continuing our Dark Side of the Ring review series. This episode is going to cover the life of Chris Kanyon. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank, and let's get right into this, man. This was a heartbreaking episode, to say the least.
Yeah, it was.
I'm a Canyon fan.
Me
Not
too.
that I'm sure there's not a lot of people out
Hi.
there
Who better
that
than
were.
Canyon? Who better than Canyon?
One of the best catchphrases of the 1990s in WCW.
Yep.
And not only that, he called himself the innovator of offense when most guys were calling themselves the innovators of defense. Well, it's a couple of people that
Yeah.
said that. It doesn't really matter. The guy had cool catchphrases. I mean, even though his mic skills were average, his ring ability was just off the chain.
Yeah, he was a good
And
wrestler. He did some
he
cool
he
stuff in the
was,
ring.
and unfortunately, WCW nor WWE did nothing with him. And everything that he battled over the course of his career just it took its toll on him.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, his demise. And we'll get to that in a second. A couple of people that stood out in this episode that were friends of his that praised him tremendously, and I got to give them credit for it. And I don't even like these guys a whole lot, but it kind of turned around a little bit here. Was the Young Bucks,
Yeah.
who had nothing but good stuff to say about him. DDP was one of his best friends. He had Brian Cage from AEW on here. Raphael Morphy was a longtime friend and also works for AEW now. They grew up together in Sunnyside, Queens. He actually called him the king of Sunnyside, New York, which was I thought was cool. You could tell the when Canyon was on the microphone, you and I could pick it up instantly that he was from New York.
Yeah, of course. But I found a little not annoying, but he was part of the Jersey Triad, and he
Yeah,
was from New York.
exactly.
They had
But
a they
in all honesty, with that gimmick, it kind of elevated him a little bit
It did.
more
No, it
in
did. It
WCW.
did. It did. I'm just saying, it's not from
I
Jersey.
know when you're from New York, you don't specify you're from Jersey. But I guess the leader in this case was 2/3 of that group was actually
Yeah,
from Jersey.
Bam Bam and DDP were from Jersey. So you know,
But DDP took him under his wing because he was his buddy and kind of rejuvenated him. Um, Raphael Morphy had discussed in the beginning of this how he always can. Chris was always battling stuff. They mentioned that in the opening part that he had cursed at a teacher for no apparent reason, and they brought him to the chaplain, and he actually confided in him and explained to him early on that he was gay. Um, he was, according to James Vandenberg, James Mitchell, he always came off as heavy Catholic, but he always had this interpretation of him that he came off as anti-gay. I guess that
mm,
was his persona, his shield that he would put up for
yeah,
this.
probably trying to overcompensate. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, James Vandenberg was actually one of the first guys that, yeah, so he took him under his wing, and I thought this was funny when they said that he got him in to train at Moolah's gym, and it's a place to start. And she doesn't
mm,
normally take in guys.
yeah.
And um, what was funny about this is when he was working in there and he was doing the spots. Remember, they said Mae Young would get into the ring,
They will beat the hell out of him.
beat the crap out of
Yeah,
him, pull his hair out for whatever reason, and they're just telling him just go with it,
yeah. Just
just
take it.
go
Yeah,
with it. Um, but I thought that was hilarious. That's just type of the person that Mae Young was. Um, WCW at this point kind of recognized him, and this is where his first gimmick came in. Was with Men at Work.
yeah. I don't even remember them.
I don't either. This was, I guess, with 95,
I think it
probably at
was
the beginning of
'95.
96.
I think yeah, around there. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Unless you
They
watch Saturday Night
Right.
TBS
I
or
think
something.
I think that's probably what it was because they did show a clip from WCW Saturday Night.
Mhm.
So I don't think that he was ever on like a Clash of the Champions. I could be wrong. Please don't destroy me in the comments if
As
they
far as
were
Men at Work goes,
Men
I
at
don't
Work. That's
believe
what I
he was in.
mean. Yeah, yeah.
He
Or
wasn't in the Clash.
Nitro. Yeah. I don't think
No, I don't remember Nitro
I
either.
don't so
So again, yeah, don't bash us if you
yeah,
actually had
yeah,
showed up there. I don't
yeah.
know. Um, he was always worried about cutting a promo because he had the lisp,
He had a lisp, yeah.
which wasn't really bad. and I've seen guys that have that have had worse that could pull it off. He was good on the microphone. I mean, again, average to a little above average. He
Yeah,
was
he
on
was
it, but
fine.
he was good.
But you know what? When it's you in that position, I could see why you would be overly critical of yourself and very self conscious about it. You know?
Yeah. From there, they had talked about he was going to Memphis, and he had his cousins moving had a U-Haul, and all of a
His
sudden
cousin was helping.
a box of the gay porn comes out.
Yeah, it was
He,
his cousin. I guess his cousin was helping him move,
yeah,
and so yeah, it was his box, and then like the box exploded,
they're
and
like,
yeah.
what the hell is all this? He told them that it was actually Vandenberg's.
All right, and that he was pulling a rib. That he was pulling a rib on him. That Vandenberg was pulling a rib on him. Pretty smart, quick thinking.
Yes, it
You're trying to
was.
cover something up, you know.
And he calls Vandenberg, practically
Like,
gives him a script on this. Goes, listen, this is what I
yeah,
need you to call and tell them.
yeah,
And he does it in the voice too, which was
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It was funny the way he impersonated him, right?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
gonna tell you this right now. I give Vandenberg all the credit in the world for dealing with Kanyon and his stuff because
yeah,
the amount
yeah.
of
The
stuff that this guy
abuse.
endured. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
he really cared about him. You could tell he
he
really, really
did
cared about him.
absolutely.
So he called. I guess he ends up calling his cousin, Canyon's cousin, and telling him, "No, you know, it was a rib that I pulled on him. You know, covered it up for him. You know,
So, and then speaking of the abuse, this now that in WCW now they changed him over to Mortis.
Mortis, and I like
It
Mortis.
it was awesome. Even in the brief time they had Adam, formerly Adam Bomb, they came in as Wrath, and then they had the tag team as Wrath
Hmm.
and Mortis. The only thing that killed that gimmick to me was the fact that they never evolved it past the feud with Glacier,
Yeah, yeah.
and they got all of this based on they did this off of the Mortal Kombat, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Glacier was basically Sub
Sub
Zero.
Zero,
Sub
yeah.
Zero, yeah. He was in the video game too, right? Wasn't he in WCW NWO Revenge? I think Mortis was in the video game.
Yes, he was,
Yeah,
which was pretty cool. And but again, they didn't. The character never evolved past that feud,
yeah,
unfortunately, which is why it never took off, and they had to reinvent him again. But one of the things now that was his manager doing this, um, they were leaving. I believe they were leaving a show, and they talked about the car wouldn't start, and all of a sudden Canyon just erupted, starts
yeah.
breaking the whole car.
And apparently, the show went well, so there was no reason
Yeah,
for him to even be upset. And like Vandenberg was trying to start the car, wouldn't start, and then this guy flipped out on him. He started elbowing him, right? He started
yeah.
hitting him.
And
Then
then he broke all the headlights, the brake
yeah,
lights, the
yeah,
rear view mirror, and he's like, if I didn't have this lisp, I could do my own promos.
right. Like, I don't need
No,
you. Like,
and then
he was
Vandenberg was like, he had said, he goes, are you sure you want to do this and say
because
all
he
this
had
to a guy,
was
the only guy that knows your secret
right, right, right.
type thing? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if he told him that. I just think he said that on the
He
show.
said that on the show. Who knows if he really said it? I mean, it's just back then it was just a total different climate, you know, like to be openly gay, you know, in a locker room of wrestlers at that point in time it wouldn't have went over well. So you could understand
No.
why all the stress that he was under, you know, combined with apparently he had mental health issues, you know, besides being all the anxiety and stress of having to live a double life. I think they said he had bipolar, right? Bipolar
Yeah.
disorder or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was depressed. He was bipolar.
Yeah.
Again, just a whole lot of demons that he's dealing
Hmm.
with, on top of this big secret
Right, right.
that, like you said, back in the '90s, it doesn't come out,
Right,
unfortunately.
right, right.
So from there now, they talked to Brian Cage, which I think, and I've said this to people, he is one of the most talented wrestlers I've seen. I wish WWE, WWE would eventually one day grab this guy. He was a fan, a close friend, and an unofficial trainee of Kanyon.
Yeah.
And he spent. He talked about from there. Now they go back to with Kanyon. He would spend his days trolling for boyfriends.
Yeah, on the internet, right?
Yeah, and not only that, he printed out the conversations and he would alphabetize them in this metal box.
Yeah.
And people would ask him what's in the box, and he'd say none of your business. Vandenberg actually referred to it as Pandora's box.
Pandora's box, yeah. And he questioned, he said, why would, you know, if you're trying to hide this,
Why would
why would you have a
you
box full of the
exactly?
evidence that you're gonna it's almost like maybe he wanted to get caught in some sense because he wanted to be released. I don't know. Who
Yeah,
knows?
well, they had said that maybe he wanted to be, and if the secret came out, would it be such a huge relief for him?
Right, right,
But
right.
which way would it go?
Yeah. It's funny because in a promo, Vandenberg does say Pandora's box in one of those cutting a promo on somebody. He
Yeah.
refers to, you're gonna open up Pandora's box. That's crazy.
So now, as the episode goes on, now this is where they talked about the NWO with his character now in WCW. Paige had looked at him and pretty much they looked at each other and said, "Well, the push is over." And
Right.
I don't agree with it so much. Yeah, they were predominant with the angle of the NWO, but they were also other storylines. And again, the character needed to evolve past the one feud, and it never did.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe he just felt like the focus was just going to be all on the NWO and everybody else. Guys
Well, he
like
wasn't
him,
wrong.
yeah, we're going to become an afterthought. So who really knows? I thought I didn't think that, but then again, we weren't there, so maybe
Yeah.
you know,
So with now all this pressure, here comes in another altercation with Vandenberg because now he starts choking him to the point where he's got
yeah,
his thumbs on his Adam's apple, and he's passed out for a minute. And when he came to, he's apologizing to him and whatnot. But um, I mean, again, for this guy to put up to it as much as he did with him is just amazing. There was even, and I'm going a little further, but it refers to this that at one point he finally couldn't take it anymore. And he pulled a gun on him,
yeah,
and he's
Vandenberg,
like, "That's like
Vandenberg.
that's it. I'm not taking this anymore."
Yeah, because he shoved him, and then it was at a point where he felt like, well, next time he might actually kill me. Like he might
Yeah,
actually choke me out and kill me. This is a huge guy, you
yeah.
know.
I
So
mean, and Vandenberg's no slouch either. I mean, you could tell him just sitting in that chair doing the interview. He's pretty built
yeah,
himself. So I mean, he could handle himself. He just doesn't want to
right.
because these guys are best friends. So in any event, now with the whole NWO thing, now the Mortis character's gone. He's reintroduced as Kanyon. Bischoff actually did have faith in him in WCW,
Yeah,
and you could tell because
you
he
could
was
tell. Yeah,
used.
yeah.
He was put on pay-per-views. He was given mic time. He was given the matches. He was given the tag team titles. So I mean, Bischoff did have faith in him. And this is and I once we talk about this, I have a feeling you're going to want to do a review on this movie. That
Oh,
Kanyon had a lot to do with Ready to Rumble.
you,
According to Matt and Nick Jackson, the best wrestling movie ever.
I've never seen it.
Ready to Rumble?
I've never watched it. No,
You lie.
I swear I've
Who
never seen it.
hasn't seen
I've
that?
never seen Ready to Rumble. I saw the trailer and it didn't do anything for me.
You know,
I
you can blame Chris Canyon for training David Arquette. By the
Yeah,
way,
I know. You know what it was? I think when Ready to Rumble came out, I think WCW was already really bad.
oh, it was in the toilet.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I didn't bother to watch it because I was like, oh, WCW is terrible. I'm not gonna watch this. But maybe
It
I'll
was
maybe I'll watch it.
pretty much that movie sums up how they book and do
Right,
storylines.
right, right, right.
If you watch the movie, you'll go, oh, that is
Maybe
WCW.
I'll watch it and we'll review it sometime.
It
So
wasn't a bad movie. It's just it portrayed WCW as this is exactly what they do.
right, right. So
Now,
Arquette
now the triple cage was a good idea. I'll
and they
give
ended
you
up
that.
using it. That was
Yes,
Can I guess it was Canyon's
Canyon's
idea,
idea.
right? To use and he cheated. He stunt doubled for Arquette and he
And for
also helped train and
Oliver
he trained.
Platt too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Which
Yeah,
when they showed it, I was like, oh, that's cool because they
yeah,
both looked alike.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So he had a lot to do with it. And again, you can blame him for putting this into Arquette's head with all this nonsense.
Nah, I blame what's his name, Vince Russo for that.
I blame Vince Russo too, but blame Canyon for
Uh,
showing him his first wrestling move. Damn you. I don't want to say that about him. Now, from he and actually he was the one that convinced them to use that cage in a
mhm.
pay-per-view. And it's funny because and I seen this pay-per-view where Mike Awesome threw him off the top of the
Yeah, and they
cage.
showed they showed the clip on Dark Side. They showed
And
that
it,
that was a
it was the bump he took.
that
I'm like,
bump. Yeah,
Jesus,
jeez,
this is rivaling Mick Foley here
well, yeah.
almost. So now, from this point on, they go into the whole thing as far as when he would host a party at his house. They said he played the Lord Bountiful, and put on the best parties. It actually DDP had said that
Yeah,
he had
both.
turned his house into a beach
A
bar
beach bar.
nightclub.
Yeah, it's
He
crazy.
even brought in sand.
Yeah,
I think that's a cool idea.
that is.
I
That is
mean, I'm
actually.
not putting sand on my floor,
Right, right, right.
but I mean, if you have the house and the
It's
space to do it,
space.
got to
Yeah.
go for it. Um, he girls. This one girl actually came up to Vandenberg at that party and said, "I think your friend is gay."
Yeah, because the thing was, Vandenberg said that like the girls were kind of all over him, and he was like no selling it. Like he wasn't paying attention to any of them, and so that one of the girls went up to Vandenberg and told him, "Hey, I think your friend's
So,
gay."
so
So then he
the idea from this comes. Well, I'll make a porno to show the
right
guys.
because Vandenberg went back and told him, and then he got all like paranoid and scared that something. So he's
Yeah.
like, oh, "I'll just make a porn. Find me a horse." I'm like, "Is that what he said?" Something like that. Oh, Jesus
Yes.
Christ.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
yes. And then he never. The best part is he never showed up.
He doesn't show up. Like Vandenberg set everything up. He had the girl, he had the room, he had the cameras,
And,
and it.
the girl puts the mortis mask on,
Right, 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 right.
and
So Van,
so
yeah, go
um
ahead.
no, go ahead.
No,
You saying?
Vandenberg ends up like making the video himself.
Yeah, and he shows it to Canyon the next day,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he gets aggressive
No, he
after
said that.
watching it.
Yeah, he said that Kanyon was laughing at first,
Yeah,
and
and
then
then
all
all
of
of a
a
sudden it
sudden,
just changed,
right? Yeah,
which is the bipolar, also,
yeah, yeah,
which they didn't know yet,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
And so this is where he had pushed him on the bed, and like I mentioned before, Vandenberg had the gun under the pillow
Right.
and pointed at him and said, "That's it." And they asked him, and he said, would you have shot him?" He said, "I would have shot him if I had to."
If he had, yeah,
So, which is unfortunate, but honestly, I don't think he would have.
yeah.
So now they go into the WCW is gone. WWE has bought them. Vince told him he had big plans for him,
Mm-hmm.
and he at one point he was actually a double champion in 2001. That's not saying a whole lot considering everybody was a champion during the invasion.
During that whole summer, that was a mess up.
But at
Yeah, I
least
know.
he
But still,
got
they
a
did
pay per
some.
view or two that he could get credit to saying
They
I was on a pay per view for WWE.
they just
And I honestly think they could have done so much more with him beyond that that they could have utilized him. Not to say he'd be WWE champion, but at least he would have been good in the story angles. Because again, he could do the mic and his wrestling skills. They rivaled most guys in WWE. I'll be honest.
no,
The
he was
stuff that
good.
he did, nobody ever saw
Yeah,
before.
I thought he was solid.
So now they also talked about during this time when he was with WWE that Vandenberg would stay with him from time to time. He actually spent like 2 to 3 days on the floor stacking papers. Because I love how they go from the WWE then to this, and then they'll go back to WWE because I guess it was during the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked him, "What is he doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm doing my tax papers," and he clearly could tell it wasn't because it was in already one pile. And then he'd actually stay in bed for about 6 or 7 days, which was clearly that's a sign of depression. He could see it in him. Um, he asked, what do you do? What do you have to be depressed about?" Pretty much, he said, "You're in WWE, you've done movies, you're being utilized. What's up?" So by this point now, Kanyon had gotten injured after the right around the end of the invasion angle. He had injured his shoulder. He was actually now taking steroids to try to get back faster to get to be in WWE. And he
Mm-hmm.
actually, at this point, he had a blood infection, which kind of hurt him. He spent a year and a half getting back from the injury. Now, I remember this upcoming angle they used with him. I remembered it, and I got pissed off watching it. I don't know. I don't know if you remember it live in 2003 with the
Yeah,
Undertaker and Heyman.
yeah, I remember it. I
Um,
just didn't understand what they were doing with Canyon. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what does this have to do with Canyon? Like, why
it
would they put?
doesn't.
Why would this is not part of his character?
No, this was during the Brock Lesnar
Mm-hmm.
Undertaker
Mm-hmm.
feud.
Their nephew, because Heyman is the one that
Yeah, he did the whole thing. They have him come out of a giant box dressed as Boy George with an even worse lisp as he's singing. And then the beatdown he got was just
Yeah, it was
ridiculous,
brutal. Yeah.
especially that chair shot. I'm like, I was wondering if there was any intention behind it from these guys because this didn't make any sense.
It's hard to tell because his friend is the one that says that I forget what's his friend's name. Do you remember off top?
Raphael Morphy,
Yeah, he was like, "Oh no, WWE wouldn't do that. They wouldn't invest all that money in him just to squash him and make fun of him like that, like insinuate that he was gay or something." But at the same time, it does make you question like why they would do that to him and have him do something like that, and it's his return. If you're
yeah,
gonna, why not him get him over on Undertaker? Like he beats Undertaker up or something, and then he doesn't have to,
just
win.
be a small part of that
Right.
storyline,
Yeah, yeah. Just
and then move on to something
right,
else.
right. So I don't know, man. Only they know. Only they know what
Yeah,
that was about. But he felt like he did it. They did it to make fun of him,
yeah.
which I don't blame him. I
Yeah,
mean,
they
it kind
thought
of
they
looks
thought he was. They thought he thought WWE was punishing him
right.
for being gay, but then he said that they weren't because no, again, he hadn't come out. Nobody knew yet.
Right, but
Um,
but there was probably whispers. There was probably
yeah,
whispers.
and I mean, and at this point, up in he now I didn't watch Velocity and all those shows back then,
Yeah, but they just
so him being utilized like that up until 2006 or even 2005, losing to guys like Funaki,
yeah.
especially when he's using his catchphrase of Funaki countering going me and the
And he
fans.
says everybody who better than
Yeah,
Kanyon, and then he says I think it was it Funaki that tells him everybody.
Funaki says
Like they
everybody.
made him a
Yeah,
joke. Like they made him a joke. Like
why are you doing this to him?
why would you do that? The kid had talent too. It's not like this guy was
Yeah,
he
you
didn't.
keep a guy like Funaki forever, but a guy like Chris Canyon, you're gonna treat like crap
Yeah, I
and
don't
then kick
know.
to the curb. I don't understand it. And shortly after this point, now Canyon was released from the WWE. He shortly after this, he did it was a small promo like a independent house show with Brian Cage, and he got when Canyon arrived and came out, he got a huge pop from the
Mhm.
fans. Even though he was selling the heel angle, they still kind of were cheering him. And Cage beat him during the match, which he said was the highlight moment of his life. And so he helped him out there, and that
Yeah,
was pretty good.
Canyon insisted that Cage go over.
Yeah.
He didn't care. He's like, no, this is your promotion. This is your time. I want to help you out. So that was cool. And he cut that promo in the ring. He said he gave him the belt. I think right. He said, "You're better than Canyon" or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then another guy they had interviewed by this point was a guy named Luke Hawks, another friend of Canyon's. It started out by telling him that when Hurricane Katrina had hit, Canyon told him, "You come stay with me free of
Hmm.
charge for as long as you need. I got you," which he thought was awesome. Um, he noticed that when he stayed with Canyon, that Canyon would be out, stay out 3 to 4 days. He wouldn't return. Um, they said that the Scientology building was right around that area. He would drive for hours,
Yeah, he was
claimed that
claiming.
aliens were stopping him.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
He thought that they were in the Scientology building. We have to
and
get them.
he had to get in there.
And when they finally got him to sleep, the next day he wakes up and
They
none of
tied him
this was
up.
a
They didn't
memory.
let him leave.
Yeah,
They didn't let him leave the house when they tied him up because they knew that once he wakes up, he'll be fine.
yeah. And
Yeah.
this was kind of like, damn, man, like what is going on? Um, so that by this point they discovered they started treatment for the bipolar. Um, by this point now he starts telling everybody that he is gay. He came out
Right.
and everybody, the Young Bucks, Brian Cage, everybody was like, "All right,
Right. No big deal.
not a problem,
Yeah.
man." So, and it was like a huge relief to him to know this that he could have did it all the time, but
Hmm.
he wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be. Um, he thought that they would hate him, but they were actually happy for him, which is good. He wanted to be a role model for gay wrestlers, and matter of fact, he did a promo with Diamond Dallas Page at this point, and Page got on the mic and asked Kanyon, he said, "Are the rumors true?" And he said, "Yes, I'm gay." He was the first ever openly gay wrestler in the history. Now, this is where WWE, I don't know what they were playing at this point, because now at this point they have Orlando Jordan, who's also gay, but they when he had at this point he came out. Now he's being pushed off as being the first, and Kanyon was pissed off. He actually wrote a letter to Stephanie McMahon saying, "Let me come back and be the spokesperson for this. You know, this was my thing. You know, it wasn't him." She blew it off pretty much. She's like, I'm sorry for your past indiscretions and whatnot. Take care of yourself. I'd have to, before we do any of this, we'd have to talk to legal." And they never got back to him after that, which I thought pretty much was them blowing him off.
Yeah, but I think they said that had something to do with the fact that something happened a couple years earlier with WWE. Like he went to an after party or something like that, and he had confronted Vince McMahon, and he was like, I guess she said to him,
they had mentioned that he at WrestleMania 20,
yeah,
after the card they went off the air, Kanyon jumped into the ring,
right,
and which surprised everybody, including his friend Raphael Morphy, who was working there at the time. And then he shows up at the party and talks to Vince, and it was
he just said, "Yeah, I still like you, even though you fired me," or something like that.
Yeah,
and he was trying to kind of create controversy, so people start writing about him and trying to reinvigorate his character, like maybe something like a Brian Pillman type.
Yeah,
trying to do something like that. He was kind of on bad terms with them, and so I think that's why they didn't really reach out to him, and he felt like that was his gimmick, which being gay is not really a gimmick, like. Then that's what this guy tried to tell him. Like, nobody, you don't have a copyright on it.
Yeah, this guy was actually the first that came out. He wanted to be the spokesperson for it, and they shot it to hell. And by this point now, he's really pissed off. He's depressed. Yeah. He had called one of the Young Bucks. Don't know which one, because honestly, can't tell them apart. I don't know who's who.
Well, there's also should be of note that they showed this earlier in the program. I remember how it was going to be hard for him coming out initially because gay characters had always been portrayed in a negative light in wrestling. They were always heels or made fun of. Yep. So so there was no way he was gonna from the beginning come out.
Yeah, because they had showed Adrian Adonis, Goldust, a few other independent wrestlers as well. So yeah.
Yeah. So.
By this point now, he called one of the Young Bucks and told him that he was going to kill himself. And he was on the phone with him for a good 45 minutes about this, because they said anytime he called, they're answering the phone, they're going to talk to him. So they pretty much, I guess they talked him out of it. They talked him down from it. So by this time now, he's on the Howard Stern show.
This I remember.
And he said that he felt like he was kicked out of the WWE because he was gay. Now, the next two things really aggravate me, because the fact that they openly came out and just said this garbage, and I'm referring to John Cena and Ric Flair. And if Ric Flair isn't enough hot water from our last episode, Playing Right from Hell, I mean, he just put the icing on his cake.
See, all right, I want to mention something about this. So the thing with Cena, I don't know why. I do know why Cena buried him, which is wrong. At the time, Cena is just taking up for the company. So when Howard Stern asked him, "Oh, is this true?" Well, I mean, I'm not Cena, but what he should have said was, I don't believe this to be true, but I wish he should have kind of skated around the whole thing instead
of not call up at all.
No, Cena was on Howard Stern as a guest, and Howard Stern. We'll get into Flair in a second.
Yeah,
because Flair took it upon himself, but Cena kind of got. I'm not gonna say he got what's the phrase I'm looking for? Ambushed, right? I'm not gonna say he got ambushed, but Cena's pretty polished. I'm surprised he didn't skate around. He buried him. He just said, "Oh, he wasn't really good."
He did.
He wasn't really good. I know him for a long time, and he you got to have more than just wrestling ability or something like that. You got to be an entertainer. Like Kanyon was entertaining.
He was.
So I don't know why he buried him like that. I was disappointed in Cena when he did that. And then Flair calls in and buries him.
Yeah, this is his childhood hero, mind you.
Right.
the guy he looked up to in the business.
I don't know why Flair would call in like that. Like there was no reason. I could understand Cena got ambushed, and you could somewhat excuse Cena to a degree because it was like he got put right on the spot and he was there, and maybe he panicked and didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
But Flair calling in to bury this kid.
Yeah, it says that John made a good point.
Yeah, and he said
He's disappointed in Chris as a person, says he couldn't work for WWE
right, you're
again.
not good enough for
You're
something
not
like
good
that,
enough
right?
to be there.
Wow.
I mean, come on, dude, really? You're not even on the show. Like you said, he took it upon himself to just call up. And you just buried this guy's ego. You crushed him to a guy that's already brittle to begin with.
And at this point, Flair knows that like he just came out, right? Obviously he knows that he just came out. So you got to understand, like you got to anybody with any sense would understand this guy's going through a lot. Why would you try to hurt this guy? This guy, I'm pretty sure he never did anything to him. Why would you try to hurt him like that? That was wrong, man. That was really wrong. Really wrong.
It's one thing if you're a guest on the show, and like you said, but he just took it upon himself. Oh, let me dial in and kill
and bury this kid who you know he's going through something.
Yeah, that was totally part of my expression, but a dick move.
Yeah.
So by this point now, he's really on the edge. Vandenberg, because they go into it to where he's like holding his ribs. He's like, "What's the matter?" He goes, "Oh, I threw myself in front of a car a couple of days ago, trying to kill myself."
Right, because he had mentioned that they had gone to a wrestling show and Kanyon performed, and he looked terrible.
Yeah,
He said that's the worst that he ever saw Kanyon wrestle. And then later on, at the bar he was okay. Right at the bar he was like, the life of the party and everything.
yeah.
But then he sees him later, and he's like limping or whatever, holding his rib. He's like, he threw himself in front of a car. He tells Vandenberg.
Yeah, and then they go on. They start yelling at each other, and then all of a sudden, it's just like they stop. They hugged each other.
Yeah.
They're having laughs, and this scared Vandenberg because this was like, okay, this is not our normal banter.
Right.
Something's not right here. This is where he felt that he was actually going to do it. Like he came to terms with it.
Because he drives him to, I think, Kanyon drives him to the airport, I think.
Yeah.
And they're reminiscing on old time. He said he felt like it was like, this is your life.
Yeah.
Because they would just say, remember this time we did this and that, and they were having a good time. And I guess he gets out of the car. I think he says that he hugs him, right? Does he hug him or he's crying or something? Like, and then I guess he realizes that, this kid might actually kill himself. Yeah.
And sure enough, April 2nd, 2010, he was found dead in his childhood home in Sunnyside, Queens, OD'd on the antidepressants. I mean, I don't want to say that the Ric Flair and the John Cena thing sent him over the edge, but I'm kind of wondering if it didn't have a big part in it.
Maybe it was the straw that broke the camel's back,
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I mean,
there were other factors too.
Yeah, it was just everything that and he just. It's unfortunate because the kid had a lot of talent, but unfortunately he had demons, and then he also. Unfortunately, was in a situation where he felt like he couldn't be honest with his lifestyle, and that throughout life that caused him a lot of problems, anxiety, and depression and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, shame. Really, I felt terrible watching this episode, man, because like I said, I like Kanyon.
Yeah, me too.
And it's just a shame, but yeah. Well, I hate to. Stand on a down note. It seems like this is dark side of the ring, man.
Dark side. I mean, we wouldn't be if we wouldn't be talking about you on a high note on Dark Side. I mean,
right. That's why it's called Dark.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I'm sure there's plenty more of this that's going to come about.
Yeah. So next week is one of the federations
FMW, the Onita's FMW, the exploding blood wire, the good stuff.
This should be interesting because I don't know anything about this.
I just remember it briefly of Cactus Jack and Terry Funk fighting there in the 10-minute exploding death matches. That's all I remember. Right. So I'm going to be looking forward to seeing this.
Yeah,
and of course, there's a dark side to this as well with the whole thing. So I'm going to be interested in this one.
Yeah, so we'll see. All right, make sure you guys like, comment, share, subscribe. See you guys soon.
Take care, guys.